Congressman Brad Wenstrup. And Congressman, welcome again to the Bill Cunningham Show. And Congressman, how are you?
I'm doing okay in spite of all that's going on around us. So you just summed up things pretty nicely there about the Olympics. You know, if we've heard some people calling it the genocide games, and that just speaks to what they're doing within their own country. But the Olympics, to me, for China, is just one of the largest intel gathering gold mines that they could possibly hope for. You know, think about all the things that they have capabilities of doing while they're there. You know, they have cameras everywhere. They wanted you to use their app as you came as an athlete, to use their app on your phone. We, in a bipartisan fashion, several of us from the Intel Committee, sent a letter to the Olympic Committee advising our athletes to take a burner phone. In other words, one you're not going to use anymore, that you'll get rid of when you're done. You know, then when you are there, I wouldn't even email anybody. I would not make connections to anybody home. Go, perform, and get out. And even while you're there, you know, they test you for doping and things like that. They're getting your blood work. They're getting more information from this than you could ever imagine, right? And this is what's very disturbing. And I had suggested that we do democracy games. Let's go have Olympics with amongst countries that we know, can trust. And China is not one of them. But, you know, the International Olympic Committee, when they look at the human rights abuses within China, why have they not canceled this? Why did they not say this isn't a place where we should go? You know, we're talking about athletes performing to their highest level, the greatest opportunity in their young lives, and you've got people in China that either get their life taken or certainly have been denied any opportunity to see what they can achieve in life.
It's amazing. And if this was a singular one-off event, you would say, well, after all, the Olympics will be over about a week from now, and then it's all over with, and then we get back to normal. But on the Intelligence Committee, you probably see and read things that the rest of us can't, but just in a general way. In the last 3 to 5 to 10 years, and for the next 3 to 5 to 10 years, talk about the intelligence operation of the Chi-Coms inside America to knock us down, to build them up. This is not a one-off event. Please describe in general what they have done, what they're doing now, and what they're going to keep doing with the support of many American businesses. What have they done? What are they doing? What will they do to this country?
Well, for one, it's been very clearly reported how they engage in our universities, and they have these Confucius Institutes, which some schools are starting to get rid of. We are starting to have administrators at universities get read in to have a clearance so we can let them know what is going on. We've had some incidents at Ohio State University, for example, where the Chinese were just walking through our engineering building. But that's just one thing. But they engage in so many ways as they buy into our businesses, they invest in our businesses. I guess another good example is, you know, how they invest in companies like 23andMe, where, hey, find out, you know, what your heritage is. You know, well, guess what? They're getting your DNA. They're getting to know what you have, what you're like, what your genetic makeup is, and don't think that they can't use this for science to someday be able to maybe take you out. And I just throw this out there as a hypothetical, but if they decide that there's a group of people with a certain DNA they don't like, and they can find a way for that DNA or that person to be, that has that genetic marker, to be attacked, this is the kind of stuff that they can do. But they are all over us. I mean, look, we've got Eric Swalwell, who astoundingly still sits on the Intelligence Committee from the Democrat side. Pelosi won't take him off. And here's a guy who, it has been discovered, was engaging with a Chinese spy. I mean, you can't make this up.
When you say engaging, we're not talking about dropping stuff off. He's having sex repeatedly with a Chinese spy, and God knows what pillow talk went on between Swalwell and a Chinese spy. And that person, Swalwell, was selected by Nancy Pelosi to sit on the Intelligence Committee at the highest level. He's also on the January 6th committee. He's one of the top Democrats. And this guy has passed off information to Chinese communist spies, and the media doesn't seem to care one bit about it. It's a non-story, Congressman.
Yeah, well, we have people that wouldn't get a clearance in the civilian world, yet they sit in Congress and somehow they're okay automatically, and I think that that's a problem. And in that particular case, I say that he's beholden to her. You know, normally if you're compromised, you're beholden to the country that compromised you, and I guess in some ways he would be, but at the same time, since his political career now rests in the hands of Nancy Pelosi, she's letting him go. So maybe that's why in the last 4 years he was spouting Russian collusion and all that other stuff. because if he didn't, then maybe he loses his position and he's maybe no longer a member of Congress, which Nancy Pelosi could have pulled that plug at any time.
And let's face it, that's a weapon of mass distraction, when it was clearly indicated that the Russian collusion delusion began with Hillary Clinton and the DNC. When that information came out, the media dropped it like a hot potato. I want to spend some time with you on what's happening to Congressman Troy Nehls of the great state of Texas. He's a veteran. He's a sheriff. And the Capitol Police, to me, I always had a sense that you men and women in the Congress looked at the Capitol Police as your protectors. They're the good guys. They're protecting us. There's like 14,000 hours of videotape not made public by the January 6th committee. The January 6th committee cannot look at the behavior of Nancy Pelosi, which did not call out the National Guard, which is something Trump wanted badly. But Muriel Bowser, the mayor of Washington, D.C., and the Speaker of the House, there's no investigation going on as to that aspect of this major failure of intelligence and behavior, where our Capitol literally what was almost ransacked by a mob, the great majority of whom were protesting outside, but those who went inside and beat up cops and did other bad things in the Capitol should be held to account. So we need a full airing of what did Nancy Pelosi know, when did she know it, what did Mayor Bowser know, and when did she know it. But in Nelson's case, describe what the Capitol Police, I watched you on Martha McCallum the other day, talk about what the Capitol Police are doing to conservative Republican congressmen who they're sworn to protect. What's going on with that?
Well, I will tell you that it's certainly not all the Capitol Police. My nephew was a Capitol policeman until a few years ago. I consider many of them to be friends, and certainly if you look what happened at the baseball field 4.5 years ago, it was Capitol Police that saved our lives. And I've had several that I know pretty well that will tell me that what happened to Troy Nehls was overstepping the boundaries and shouldn't happen. There are certain procedures. Now, supposedly he had an unlocked door. Well, it makes sense to me as they're making their rounds at night that you find an unlocked door, that you want to go in and make sure that everything looks to be in place, et cetera, and close the door. And maybe inform the member the next day that looked like your door was open last night. Did you find anything out of place? But that didn't seem to be what this Capitol Police person decided to do. This person apparently has been reported went in and started taking pictures of what he had in his office and legislation that he was actually working on. And that was unbeknownst to him because that supposedly happened in November. And he got a letter on January 31st that acknowledged that the officer had taken photographs of his office. And as I understand it, they even went back dressed as construction workers to do a little more, but found a staffer there and then started questioning the staffer about this. See, here's what they found. They found on his whiteboard that he was discussing something about body armor. You know, keep in mind, this is an infantry guy. This is a sheriff, and he was disturbed that we were getting our body armor from, of all places, China. Oh. So he was working on legislation to make us have to get U.S.-made body armor. And then they also were concerned because he had sort of a map of one of the House office buildings, Rayburn, and there was an X on it. The X was for his staffer to know where the ice machine was in the Rayburn office building. But they didn't ask him any of this. They drummed up their own story, apparently, and then they just started their own investigation unbeknownst to him. I mean, this is totally inappropriate. This is not the role of the Capitol Police. Nancy Pelosi says well, I have nothing to do with the Capitol Police, but she appoints the sergeant at arms. And if she has nothing to do with the Capitol Police, why is it that we don't have her communications from January 6th? So, you know, you put these two things together, and it's really an ugly picture that's there. I don't believe it's all the Capitol Police by any means. As a matter of fact, I think the Capitol policeman that's in charge of the union, it would be fully against what took place here.
Do you have a sense that the elements of the Capitol Police are in the business of gathering intelligence of Republican House members and passing that information on to Nancy Pelosi to be used against them politically or otherwise?
Yeah, it seems to me politically or totally inappropriate. And you know, look, these are duly elected members of Congress. I don't care if it's someone I disagree with and don't like. It still is not their role to go in there and start taking pictures. You know, our offices get cleaned every night. You know, I trust the people that come in to my office to clean the office, that they are just coming in and doing their job and getting out. They're not there for any type of espionage, and neither should the Capitol Police. Now, if we suspect that somebody's been breaking into our office, I would hope that we could report that to the Capitol Police. Instead, they're the ones doing the reporting based on things you have in your office, and, you know, unbeknownst to them, they create a conspiracy theory when he's working on good legislation and just wanting to let his staff know where the ice machine is.
Well, on the third issue on the on the House Intelligence Committee, Senator Cotton and others have said the invasion of the Ukraine is imminent. Smart money says Putin would wait until after the Olympics conclude in about a week, but who knows about that? You see a lot of information, and one cannot gather the idea that somehow a first world ground military would attack a small nation by air, sea, and air, resulting in the deaths of hundreds of thousands of civilians and the dislocation of 5 to 6 million Ukrainians or more, including the death and the killing of tens of thousands of Ukraine citizens, Ukraine military, and also, of course, the Russian military would suffer losses of one type or another. But the outcome would be known, and I know that America cannot put ground troops, God forbid, into the Ukraine. Look what happened in Afghanistan, for God's sakes. We can't do that. But from everything that you have learned on the Intelligence Committee, and you can't disclose confidential information, of course, but is it fair to say that all the indicators show that in the next week to 3 weeks, there's going to be a massive ground invasion of the Ukraine by Vladimir Putin that changes forever the relationship Putin's going to have with the West?
Well, it certainly will change the relationship that he has with the West, and he certainly has seemingly postured himself to do whatever he decides to do. And, you know, now, you know, I would hope that in some ways he's looking for an excuse out. You know, a lot of the world has begun to notice, it's like, really, what are you trying to achieve here? Do you think this brings, you know, peace to the region? Yeah. And it does not. You know, we may not have a NATO attack, or, you know, that's one of his concerns, is that, well, we don't want Ukraine to join NATO. But I'll tell you what it has done. It has united the NATO nations in many, many ways. And, you know, it's really kind of interesting to me. Yes, I only have an undergrad degree in psychology, and I am a soldier who's been to war. But at some point, it seems a little bit strange that he can't get up someday and look in the mirror and say, I've got 30-some countries around me that don't like me and have joined together because they don't like me, and you still go on and say, but I'm going to do what I want anyway. It's really bizarre. He's a different type of leader. He's got a hold on his country. And remember, he controls the media there. If he does invade, my guess is he'll try and find a way to make it somebody else's fault, right? But they have been killing Ukrainians for some time. This isn't new. I was in Ukraine right before Christmas, and I was in Kyiv, and I will tell you, people are going about their business. It's almost like they are used to this Russian shadow over them, maybe like South Korea is with North Korea. I don't know, but they seem to be going about their business, knowing that something could happen, and that for them, in many ways, it's a way of life, but they are tired of it. They are uniting over this. Yeah, they have Russian-speaking people in those regions. Well, if they wanted to be Russian, they could leave and go to Russia, but they haven't. And so I think that he's miscalculating on a lot of things, and he may make some grave mistakes that will affect him in the long term. And, you know, it's one of those things where he probably, if he's seeing the writing on the wall like that, you would hope that he tries to find a way that he can go back to his people and somehow claim some kind of a victory for the Russian people.
Lastly, Congressman Wenstrup, sitting here on this Sunday night, I can't imagine America is in a worse situation foreign policy-wise when we have a feckless, confused leader, and now Kamala Harris is going to a Munich security conference representing our country, and God knows what she knows. I look at Afghanistan. I look at the Biden administration giving the mullahs in Iran up to $30 billion relief. I look at what's happening with Israel, scared to death about the Iranian missiles. I look at what's happening in the CHICOM, Communist Red China. They're marching, and they're saying soon they're going to have a larger economy than we have, and we're selling them the rope to hang us with because of corporate America. I look at communist Russians on the march. I look at our southern border being invaded. We care more about the border of Ukraine and Moldova than we care about the southern border of this country. And we have a foolish, feckless president who has lost mental acuity, who is an expert in foreign relations. I can only imagine if these events are transpiring and Donald Trump was in the White House and all this stuff was going on, the media would be relentless. He would have been impeached for the 8th time. But Congressman, up against the clock, we got to go. And I wanted to educate the American people tonight about what's happening from a real-life member of the U.S. Intelligence Committee and the Congress. And the Capitol Police, I've always thought, are the good guys. Keep an eye on them. And the southern border's in crisis. What's happening with the Olympics is a shocking disgrace. But, Congressman, we got to run. Once again, Brad Wenstrup, thank you for coming on the Bill Cunningham Show this Sunday night. My friend will do it again. Thank you very much.
Yep, stay strong, Willie.
I shall. Thank you. Congressman Brad Wenstrup, a soldier, a congressman, and a doctor.